This is Dr. Westbrook. Welcome to Love Notes, where we challenge notions of love and sex.
There are two different types of desire. There's a spontaneous desire and responsive desire. What happens most often is that a couple comes into therapy and they're struggling with differences in desire. Typically, they describe it as one person has a higher desire and the other person has a lower desire or no desire whatsoever. And sometimes it happens that both people come in with low sexual desire. The issue with understanding it as low or high is that you start to try to apply what you know about one desire to the other in order to raise it, rather than understanding that the desires are different and that they each need something different from each other in order to open up and to not close down. Spontaneous desire is a type of desire that's not really affected by anything. It's ready to go at any time. It's not affected whether people are tired or stressed or the relationship is in conflict. That desire is ready to go at all times. And it's really hard for that type of desire to understand the responsive desire, which is quite different from that. The responsive desire is very affected by what surrounds it. It's affected by how the relationship is doing, whether there's conflict, whether there's violence, whether there's, like avoidance or stonewalling or not paying attention, no intimacy. It's also affected by what's happening inside themselves, whether how good they feel about themselves, how good they feel in their bodies, whether they have stress, whether they have mental health issues, depression, anxiety. Especially anxiety, because anxiety is something that keeps you in your head a lot. And if you're in your head a lot, you can't be in your body, which is where the sexual desire resides. So the individual factors also affect responsive desire. Not only that, contextual factors affect sexual desires, such as, if there's been a move, if the job is stressful, if the place that they're living doesn't agree with them. So anything that has to do with their surroundings, their environment, also affects sexual desire. It shuts it down. The other area that shuts down sexual desire is if there's any form of addiction. So we're talking about like any type of addiction. It can go from gambling, work, exercise. The point being is that person is unavailable, isn't engaged in something else. And so the person with the responsive desire doesn't really have what it needs in order to open up, because this person is unavailable. There's some betrayal there, and it's difficult to feel connected and have intimacy. The other addiction that seems to be really prevalent, and it does affect desire on both desires, on the spontaneous and the responsive, is porn use. Now, porn use can affect the person that's engaging in the porn because you get used to a certain stimuli. Just like when you're masturbating, you get used to a certain rhythm and a certain pressure. And then when somebody else comes to touch you, it's not quite the same, and it doesn't give you as much pleasure, and maybe not even help you reach orgasm. So the same thing with porn. If you're used to having the stimuli and then you transition into your relationship with your partner, those visuals and even the sounds and the type of person and the situation isn't there. So it's really hard for you to become excited and to feel pleasure. Now, on the other side of things, a person that is engaged with somebody that has porn use, heavy porn use, is also affected. Their desire is affected because they don't feel the connection. They don't feel the intimacy. They've probably had a few betrayals with this. And on top of that, they feel like, what's wrong with me that you can get excited with these other type of people, but not with me? What's wrong with me that you can't find our sexual encounter satisfying? Now, none of this is neither true nor false, but it's more to understand how people come into this session and how they understand what's going on. To end, there's two different types of desire, and it's really important to understand that there's two ways of doing this, because what often happens is that the person with the spontaneous desire typically says, well, why can't you just do this? I do so much for you already. When I don't want to, why can't you just do this one thing for me? And look, you even like it when you do this thing. But the issue is that with the responsive desire, it doesn't work that way. Responsive desire needs to be inspired. It needs to be, that inspired. And so it's really difficult for it to say, okay, I'm going to do this thing, and I'm going to make myself have sex. I like it once I have it. And people do that, but there are some consequences to that we'll talk in the next video of some of the consequences from engaging in spontaneous sex when you have spontaneous desire. When you have responsive desire, is that it starts to erode your desire a bit. And we'll talk more in depth about that in our next video.